Hello and welcome to JavaNinjas.com. I'm Srinivas. In this session, I'm going to explain about the overriding concept in Java. So before getting into this session, I would like to define the scope of overriding feature. So overriding is the basis for the polymorphism, which is one of the most important principles of object-oriented programming. So we'll get to see how overriding helps in achieving the polymorphism concept in OOPS. And remember that overriding is only applicable to the methods, so it cannot be applied at the class level. And overriding is also applicable for the classes that are actually related to each other through inheritance. That means it is only applicable, this concept is only applicable between the superclass and the subclass relationship. So before going and touching up the overriding concept directly, I'd like to give an example about the polymorphism and what it is about, and how overriding can help in terms of achieving this polymorphism. So let us take, we have a CEO who had a car when he started his business, and when the business started growing up, he got two more new cars. One is BMW and a Mercedes. So he has got three cars now, and he has got a driver as well. So on a given day, he can travel by any one of his cars, and his driver is the one who decides which car he's going to drive to the office. So it is based on the situations like the availability of the car, or the car might have gone to service, or depending on the occasion as well. So it is the driver who takes up the car and drives the CEO to the office. So let us look at the easier relationship, which is the basis for overriding concept. So when there is inheritance, there is an easier relationship between the classes. So if you take the programmatic notation of these, the concept that I have spoke earlier, so you can see that there's a class car and there's a move method inside it, and there's also a BMW and there's a Mercedes Benz. So please remember, the overriding concept is applicable for the superclass and subclass relationship. So you can see that I have extended BMW class with car class. Mercedes extends car. Without this relationship, overriding will not work. So here, because there is an extends keyword relating the classes, so I can say Mercedes is also a car, BMW is also a car, because the CEO has to travel by car. So anything, it is any one of these cars he can travel. So anything can be said as car. You just need not say it's a particular BMW or Mercedes. You can make it generic that, yeah, he travels by car. Now, I can say that BMW is a car, Mercedes is a car. So, how easy is going to be strongly, how can you make it strong to prove that okay, Mercedes is a car? I can say that as we already know that through inheritance the subclasses are going to get all the methods available through the subclass objects. That means if I create an object of Mercedes, I can use the Mercedes object to access the method move, which is actually defined in car. Even if I create an object of BMW, I can use this object to call the move method in the car. That means Mercedes is actually behaving as a car because it is able to inherit the behavior of the car as well. So anything that inherits another class is actually forming an easier relationship with it. So let us go ahead and see how the the total functionality works. Now to implement it something like this, the CEO calls the driver's drive method, and here driver, in the driver class, the drive first flow is to choose the car. So I'm creating 3 instances of cars. You can see that car C is equal to new car, new BMW, new Mercedes. You can see that all these objects are actually referenced by a car reference, car type. This is very important concept here. That means a superclass reference is actually referring to a subtype of objects. So it is because, please remember, there are 2 phases in Java programming. One is the compiler. You compile the class, and the next phase is the virtual machine which runs the objects actually. So during the compilation phase, the compiler will look if the car reference will be able to call the move method or not. Yes, it is able to, because car has the move method. It doesn't really care on this part, which is actually which is actually a part for the JVM. So here the car only sees, the compiler only sees that move method is accessible irrespective of the object here. If this line passes the compiler compilation, then there's no problem for this line as well. So it is important that the reference part plays a major role in overriding. So when I call drive method of driver, first step is the choose car, and once the car is chosen, based on that I'm returning the car reference, and this car reference is again given to drive to office, and the car move method is being invoked. Now coming to the overriding concept itself, the earlier whatever I have spoke is about something related to polymorphism. As a polymorphism says that any object can replace another one without affecting the functionality. That means many forms. I mean to say poly means many forms. That means the car alone doesn't do the work. Even BMW or Mercedes can also do the work on the runtime. That's what is about overriding. So let us see the real concept of overriding, how it can be implemented. You can see that the move method is just having something like, functionality related to moving normally. But when it comes to BMW, obviously we need to have a better method from this normal cars implementation. Then we have Mercedes, obviously it should also be better, else why our CEO would have bought the cars. So the overriding is about the ability to give the subclasses more power to implement better functionality than that is there earlier on. If they feel that okay, this functionality is not good and I can implement better way, then they are actually given the power through overriding concept. So here BMW can implement a method which actually it specifies that the car can move at a very high speed, and Mercedes, yes, move with speed and comfort as well. So they are implementing their own functionality with that. So whenever I pass the BMW object, basically this method is going to get executed rather than this one. That means the JVM first looks into this class. Does it have implementation? If yes, it will execute this one. If not, it will immediately look at the superclass and finds okay, this has this method, and it will execute the move method. If not, it will also look for the car superclass. If someone exists, then it'll execute from that class. So overriding is about giving an opportunity to implement a better functionality. So it is about re-implementing the methods in subclasses. So we should remember some of the rules while working with overriding, and remembering these rules is very important. And for those people who are preparing for the certification exam, you got to be really familiar with these rules, because there will be questions on this topic for sure. Please remember, the method signature should not change. So when I say method signature, this part is called method signature. The return type and the name and the arguments part I call method signature. Here in the original one I have a public access void move, and here you can see that there's an argument that is added. So this particular implementation is not said to be an overriding concept, because overridden method should not add any new arguments. This return type should be same, and the arguments should also be the same. There's no new argument should be added on, something should not be deleted. The next rule is access to overridden method should not be more restrictive. So you can see that the access modifier for this method is public, and if I make it protected, I'm actually downgrading the accessibility of this method. So this is a wrong implementation. It is because believing that this method is going to be public, so most of the outside packages would have been trying to access this method, and if you suddenly make it protected, what happens is that this method might not be visible to some other packages. So this kind of overriding is not acceptable. I have a default access for this move here, and if I make it public, that's okay, because you're giving it more chance to making it more visible to some new classes as well. So this is okay, acceptable. The next one is having the default access, and again this one is also having the default access. I didn't change the accessibility, that is fine. This is a perfect overriding. The next rule you have to remember is that overridden method should not throw new exceptions or broader exceptions. That means I do not have any exceptions here for the original one, but I cannot throw a new exception, because thinking that the original method does not throw exceptions, the calling methods would not have implemented the try catch block in their calling area. So when you throw this exception, they are forced to change their code, which is a bad idea. So please remember, new exceptions are not allowed for the overridden methods. And here in the second part, I can see that I'm throwing an exception, and here I'm throwing a subtype of an exception called IO exception. This is acceptable because someone who is calling this method would have implemented a try catch block to catch the exception, and any subtype of exception type can be easily handled by that block of code. So if less restrictive exceptions can be thrown, that is acceptable. So here you can see that I'm throwing a file not found exception, and I'm throwing a broader exception, IO exception, which is also not acceptable, because for someone who has implemented to catch the file not found exception, IO exception will not fit their catch blocks, and the exceptions will be thrown out. So compiler will not allow to do this kind of overriding. Then coming to the other rule, overriding classes should always be subclasses in which it overrides. So you can see that there's a car, BMW extends car, and this is a perfect overriding. But when it comes to rover, even if I say move method, and this is not an overriding, because rover has no relationship between the car or BMW, so this is not an overriding concept. And the next rule is that overriding can throw any unchecked exceptions, because unchecked exceptions need not have a try catch block, or you don't have to handle them. So any runtime exceptions are allowed, because even if you throw a runtime exception from the overridden method, that's fine, because the calling methods need not implement any exception handling mechanism. Let me explain you a particular scenario when overriding is the best, works best. Is that let us take a hospital example where it is going to treat some patients. So patient P. Out here I have a class patient, which is generic patient, and then we have a special kind of patients called dental patients with certain problem, and eye patient and an ENT patient. So all these patients extend patient class, and these object types can be easily passed to this one, because the patient can refer to these objects. So please remember, until this kind of generic representation of the object is present, any subtype of these objects can be easily passed for the treatment. So it is the reference which actually is very, very important in terms of successful implementation of overriding. So A service API will always looking at the genre type and the the consumer part, or the one on this side, can go ahead to implement their own advanced objects as well. Then there's something you should know about overriding, is that a method marked as a final cannot be overridden, because if the superclass marks a method as final, it is saying that this is the best implementation and no one can change this implementation, and that is the rule. So a method marked as final can never be overridden, and a method marked as static also cannot be overridden, because the static methods belong to class instance, and methods that are marked as private also cannot be overridden, because obviously that method will not be visible outside the class itself. So there's no point of overriding concept coming in that place. So let me demonstrate an example here. So you can see that I have a car. I'll change the format. Okay, you can see that the car class with the move method, which prints out something called move normally, and I have BMW, which has overridden something called move faster, and I have a Mercedes with move smooth. So I have another class to demonstrate this. So overriding demo, out here is the main method, and here I'm creating the BMW object, I'm creating a Mercedes object. So for the drive method, I'm passing this car reference and I'm invoking move method. So when I pass BMW, it will print move faster, and when I pass Mercedes, obviously it will print the move smooth output. So let me just demonstrate this. I've already compiled them, so I'm just going to execute them directly. So overriding demo. So move faster, it is because the BMW object is being passed, its move method will be invoked, and this move method is actually invoking. So if I comment this part, so let us see what happens. It should call the move method from the superclass, that means the car class. So I've just saved because I changed this class. I have to compile it, bmw.java. So I'm just compiling it, and now I'm again running the overriding demo. You can see that it is invoking move normally, which is actually the implementation of car class. So that's why when you override a method, depending on the object that is being passed, the first implementation will be looked into that object, and if it is not there, then it will refer to the superclass. So this is about the overriding concept. So you can see that the basis for polymorphism is that any object can replace a normal car, just representing themselves as a car. So poly means many objects can come and occupy that place or behave themselves as a car, even though they have a latest implementation. So this is called polymorphism. Even I know you take a race, a driver can choose his own car, or there are a lot of examples to state about polymorphism from our own real life. So it's all about you should think what is the best fit, what could be the best example. So when you think of an example for yourself, you're going to understand this concept more and more better. So in the next session, I'm going to talk about the overloading concept. So that's all for this session. Please give your comments, subscribe to my channel for more videos, and you can like my page Java9s on Facebook, follow me on Twitter at Java9s, subscribe to my channel Java9s. You can visit java9s.com, or I have specified the link in the description of this video. You can use that link to reach my website to download the PDF version of this presentation. That's all for this session. Have a nice day. Bye.